Good evening and welcome to the regular school board meeting for Independent School District 833. Tonight is Thursday, July 16, 2020 at 6:30, and of course we are coming to you live via webcast. 2.0 is roll call.
Melinda Doles.
Here.
Louise Hines.
Here.
Simi Petnaik.
Here.
Pat Driscoll.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here.
Tracy Burnett.
Here. Thank you. 3.0 is the approval of our agenda. We actually have 3 action items we will be adding this evening. So 10.3, the approval of findings and conclusions submitted June 16, 2020 in the matter of termination of coaching contracts. 10.4 is the approval of the retirement of Dr. Keith Jacobus. And 10.5 is the approval of a proposed succession plan for filling our superintendent vacancy. So with those 3 additions, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Sharon Van Leer, so move.
Simi, second.
Katie Schwartz, second.
All right, so Sharon moved, Simi second, all roll call.
Melinda Doles.
Yes.
Louise Hines.
Yes.
Simi Petnaik.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes, thank you. 4.0 are district highlights, and our highlight this evening will be presented by Kaarin Shumacher, Woodbury High School Gifted Education Coach.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you, school board members and Dr. Jacobus. My name is Kaarin Shumacher, and I am a science teacher and a gifted ed coach at Woodbury High School. And it is my honor to be with you guys tonight to introduce to you Wesley Ross. I have gotten to know Wesley Ross through my gifted ed position very well. And there are lots of ways I could describe Wesley to you and lots of words I could use. But one word that I landed on is unique. Wesley is unique in his thought processes and the way he views the world. As you will see, he is unique in his captivating speech. He is unique in his entrepreneurial spirit and also his skill. He is just an awesome kid. And some of you may know Wesley because unlike me, he's famous. He's been in the newspaper lately, and I like to boast about it. So Wes knows that I like to boast about him. But he's been in the newspaper. He's been on lots of media outlets lately because he's outstanding. And not just because he's outstanding, because he developed a business plan and launched a company last summer. And not only, if that doesn't make him amazing enough, he has, in the wake of this pandemic, shifted his company to meet the growing demands and need for required PPE with COVID-19. So, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce to you this absolutely incredible, compassionate, and courageous young man, Wesley Ross.
Hey, yeah, so thank you for having me on. As Ms. Shumacher stated, I'm Wesley. I go to Woodbury High School. I'll be a junior next year. To kind of give a quick description on my whole company, North Star Dynamics, it was started last summer on July 5th, along with my previous company, Speed Labs. And that was started around May 14th of 2019 as well. North Star Dynamics primarily bids on government contracts for the federal government, including Air Force bases, prisons, things like that, and other federal agencies such as the FBI and CIA. With Speed Labs, it's an online e-commerce store, and there's also a startup called Phantom Motorcycles. With North Star Dynamics, kind of focusing on the whole PPE side of things, where you saw the Pioneer Press articles or the piece on CNBC, we about to date around 240,000 masks supplied across the country, which is higher than 2 weeks ago, the 52,000 mark. So this is kind of ramping up with the total cases. Recently, I have been discussing a deal with the Los Angeles County United School District to supply about 10,000 three-ply face masks and other things from face shields, gowns, and other PPE products. But yeah, so to date, about 240,000 masks, and then various quantities of other PPE products supplied.
Oh, incredible. So who do you work with to run your business? I mean, you don't manufacture all this, or you do manufacture what you're sending out?
Yeah, so for the current PPE that I do supply, I have direct production lines for three-ply face masks, face shields, and nitrile gloves. So the production, so all is held in a warehouse in St. Paul, but the production lines for the three-ply face masks is about 300,000 a day. Currently, I take about 10,000 a day out of that stock for my shipments through my manufacturer. The face shield production is about 200,000 a day, and then the nitrile gloves is about 1.5 million a day, of various sizes from extra small to extra large.
Wow. Incredible.
Wesley, how did you find out, how do you break into bidding on the governmental contracts and things like that? How did you get interested in this, and how did you get things started when you started the company?
Yeah, so with the government contracts, I had saw a movie called War Dogs, which is this Jonah Hill movie. It's kind of a comedy, kind of not a comedy, and it tells the story of these two 30-year-olds or 20-year-olds who had made $300 million through government contracts, and then it eventually went to jail because they cut a few corners and broke a few federal laws. And I figured I could try something like that just because I know the dreams and goals that I wanted to achieve at kind of my position in life. And I knew that this was kind of the opportunity to do that, except going to jail. So I decided to give it a shot, and I kind of just followed the steps throughout the movie, and kind of already had a little bit of business background with the whole Speed Labs and a few other businesses I had ran in the past. So I knew the whole process of kind of registering, taxes, things like that. There was just a little bit more steps in order to bid with the government in terms of, DUNS number, cage code, capability statements, things like that. But it was nothing too hard or nothing I couldn't do.
Wow.
Very impressive. Anyone else have any questions or?
Yes, Wesley. My name is Kwame. I am Director of Facilities. You and I need to talk. There's some things. I didn't know you were in my backyard. This makes it a whole lot easier. So just link up sometime, okay? I'll give you my number for this. We need to talk, right? Thank you.
Wesley, would you like to go to law school, buddy?
I actually, before this, I wanted to study naval architecture and work for Carnival Cruise Lines, and then I kind of settled into this. So still undecided, but I used to really want to go to law school in the 6th, 7th grade. Because I'm a part of the statewide program Youth in Government. I'm currently the officer-elect for the Sibley House. So I've kind of had my little background in the whole government and law side of things.
Business law would be your niche.
Good recruiting there, Sharon.
Well, Wesley, I bet you Carnival Cruise Lines could really use a lot of PPE.
Yeah, I have been working on a few contracts for different agencies around the country. Like I said, to date, about 240,000 supplied around the United States, and then working on more contracts, more deals, things like that for different school districts and different businesses to kind of supply more.
Well, thank you so much to Kaarin and for sharing your story, and for Wesley, for joining us this evening and telling us all about your amazing business. It's very cool. So thank you very much.
Yep.
And continued success. Yeah.
Good job.
All right. After that, we will follow with public comment 5.0. So we have two this evening. The first is from Carla Berry. I have been a South Washington County educator since 2012. In my time here, I have seen a lot of bigoted behavior of all kinds, causing my students in many different marginalized groups to become further marginalized as individuals. I commend the work of the folks behind the Dear Washco Instagram page, and I really hope our district will take note of what our students are telling us. Their lived experiences are far more informative than any statistics or data we can measure in making the case for the immediacy of our need for equity in District 833. Let's build on the momentum of this moment now while we have the time to do so thoughtfully. And then one additional from Charles and Shelbia Altman. We would like to offer a proposal to allow students to choose whether to have their grades from the last trimester of the 1920 school year be included in their final GPA. Allowing this option would give all students a choice either to include grades in their GPA for those who worked hard to earn them, or to not include the grades in their GPA for those students who found the online schooling challenging and did not perform their best. The online schooling situation was a complex situation to say the least. Some students had definite hardships and did not perform well, which is understandable. These challenges should not penalize the students, and therefore their grades should be exempt from their GPA. Other kids, however, took the change very seriously and worked hard to keep their grades aligned with their regular performance. It is hard to tell those students their hard working during the semester would not be acknowledged and counted. We would like to offer a proposal to allow each student to individually choose to include or to not include the last trimester in the GPA, which would be a favorable solution for all students. And I apologize, I forgot to read the first part, just the fact that we don't respond or discuss comments, and the superintendent may be asked to prepare a response to the concerns. 6.0 are consent items. All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the meeting. However, board members did have the opportunity to review them and could have requested that one of them or any of them be moved to an action item. So we don't have that this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Melinda Dole, so moved.
Pat Driscoll, second.
Right. Roll call vote, please.
Melinda Dawes,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petnaik,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. 7.0 are workshop items that will be on our agenda for August 13th. 8.0 is an information item, and 8.1 is a fall update, and Dr. Jacobus will take this item.
Thank you. As everyone is thinking about the fall, and it certainly is the most important thing on our minds as we're planning to get ready for the governor's decision that we hope we'll hear on July 27th. We've been doing a lot of planning, and there's a few things that we'd like to update you as a board tonight. We'll do a few things. One, we want to take you through the information we received from our first staff and parent survey. And John Lindner is here, and he will take you through the data and give you the themes. Then I asked Kwame. Kwame has done a lot of planning and preparation already for the fall to explain what are some of the safety precautions that he has worked to put in place depending on how we open up, and particularly if we open up with all students in schools. And then Julie and other cabinet members that are involved in strategy planning, we wanted to just give you a brief summary of some of the work. We have 5 planning teams that are moving forward. And then we're happy to take questions as we go through. We know that things are changing on a weekly basis around the country and in Minnesota as well, as they track infection rates and how that might play out with the governor's decision. We're not sure. But we want to give you an update. And so I'm going to start by turning it over to John Lindner, our Director of Assessment, to take a look at the survey and take you through the themes and what we learned from this first round. I will tell the public and say right now that we do plan further surveys as we get closer to the decisions and give our parents and community members a chance to weigh in as we refine our decisions before September. So thanks for being here, John, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobus. I am going to share my screen with you guys. All right. Good evening, board chair, school board members, Dr. Jacobus. Tonight I'm going to talk about the fall 2020 planning survey. The purpose of the survey was to start collecting information from families and staff that could help frame and structure fall planning discussions. The survey went from June 29th to July 7th. 9,809 families. That represents about 14,900 students in pre-K through grade 12 plus responded to the survey. 1,978 staff members across our district participated in the survey. We're going to start looking at by looking at the student survey, or the family survey. Then we'll finish up with the staff survey. The first two slides, we're going to go over which families took the survey. Families were asked to provide the grade level of their students, which is how we know how many students our 9,000 families represent. We see a pretty even distribution across grade levels. There's a slight dip in 12th grade, with a little under 1,000 12th graders being reported. Just for reference for the public, typically in our K-12 enrollment, our grades are somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 students. When we look at the race ethnic data, we do see a little bit of underrepresentation among our students of color. It is a little difficult to know exactly how much underrepresentation there is because we have about 11% of our families that said they prefer not to say or they did not fill out the race ethnic data. If you would like a little more information about where our students or where our families are, where our students are, they're reporting them. After this presentation on the web, there will be a printout of a map that shows the counts by schools and where those schools are geographically in our district. Before we get too far, I do want to say that the survey was pretty long and we're kind of tight on time. So I'm going to cut down the number of items we're going to look at least during this presentation. However, the school board and the public will be provided the full list of questions and the responses to those questions. So everything will be provided. The first questions we're going to look at is around families planning to send their children back to school. And we ask, if we have in-person schooling under scenario 1, which for us, in the survey, it describes scenario 1 as our traditional in-school, the way things have been in the past, or scenario 2, which is a hybrid model. And there are some descriptions of what that is. That's students coming every other day, half the students in the building. We had 50% of our families saying they will send their child back with few concerns, and 40% saying with no concerns. 9% of our families said they were not going to be sending their child back to South Washington County schools. For those of you who are quickly adding up the circle and they're like, oh, that's 99%, that's not 100. It has to do with rounding. We're just a little shy in each of these, so it didn't quite round up to 100. The next two questions we asked families, what would make you feel comfortable sending your child to South Washington County schools? And we gave them 8 different options, and we asked them to rank order those 8 options. Below are the highest ranked options. Number 1, all employees are required to follow MDH and CDC guidelines. Classroom spaces are cleaned and sanitized daily. And the third option is we gave families the option to say there is nothing that would make them feel comfortable. And that was our third most popular option. I will say that we had a comment. Parents had the opportunity to do comments after this, and there were, in the comments, there are a lot of statements about vaccines, both masks, both pro and con, and some concern about families that have to send sick children to school because they don't have childcare, and how are they going to handle that? And then if we look at that next question over, what concerns do you have? It's really kind of what would make you feel comfortable, but in reverse. So our families are worried that we're not going to follow health regulations. Classrooms will not be disinfected. And childcare for before or after school were the big things that popped up for families. Then we asked 3 questions around wearing masks. The first one was, will you provide a mask for your child? 75% of our families said they were planning to provide masks. However, there was a little more split around the question of requiring students to wear masks. I kind of stated in that last slide that there were a lot of statements in the comfortable and the concern area. There's a lot of statements from families either pro-mask or anti-mask. So our community is really split around that issue. So we had 54% of families saying that we should require masks for students, and 61%, a slightly higher number, saying that we should require masks for staff. Then we asked a couple questions around distance learning. There was a lot of concerns with distance learning. So the first question is, if we do distance learning, will you send your students back to school? About 88% said yes, with either few or no concerns. They were going to send their students back to South Washington County School. We did have 15% of our families that they will not be sending their students back if it's under distance learning. Then we asked some follow-up questions about what types of things there will be for distance learning. 72% of our, so the first question was, how comfortable do you feel with live virtual classrooms? That being like the idea of a WebEx like we're on now, or a Zoom meeting where there's cameras into the home. 72% of our families were comfortable with live virtual classrooms. 16% wanted to monitor the use of live virtual classrooms. And 12% were not comfortable with live virtual classrooms, the idea of cameras in the household. Then this third question is actually taking live virtual classrooms and just going a little bit further. We asked specifically, going beyond live virtual classrooms, what if we had a set schedule to distance learning? And we gave an example. A student will log into Schoology or Seesaw, secondary versus elementary, for specific classes at 9 a.m. So their teacher can teach through a live video or some other type of interaction, whether that's a chat or some other application. If students do not log in at 9 a.m. and interact with their teacher, they would be counted as absent. So that's kind of the scenario with this set schedule. 37% of our let's start up here. Let's start here. 46% of our families said they were okay with it. That is 100% okay. 37% of our families said they were okay with the set schedule, but they didn't want there to be attendance or absence based on it. And they still wanted students to have the chance to interact asynchronously. So they want to be able to do it off that set time. They did not want students to have to turn in their homework at 9 a.m. or whatever that period was. And 17% of our families said, no, we do not want set distance learning timelines. And take a breath, and now we're going to move on to the staff survey. Just kind of give you a feel that 1,978 surveys. The vast majority were teachers, then paraprofessionals, which makes sense. That's where our staff are. We asked staff that exact same those two questions about comfort and concern. And very similar to families, we got very similar answers. Our staff would be, one thing that would make them comfortable would be requiring, if all employees are required to follow Minnesota Department of Health and CDC guidelines. Where the staff changed a little bit in comfort is their second highest option was there was nothing that would make them feel safe. And then their third choice was workspaces that are cleaned and sanitized daily. Then if we look at the concerns, again, people were concerned about public health regulations not being followed. The second highest concern for staff was having in-person interactions with others. And then third is the classrooms not properly disinfected. I'm going to just add some, in the comment sections on these, staff also brought up vaccines. They brought up class sizes. And one thing that staff were really concerned about were both students coming to school sick and if there would be enough subs and if teachers would come to school sick. Currently, there's a lot of pressure on a teacher if they're just feeling a little under the weather that they feel like they should really need to come in to give their students the best education they can receive. And there was a lot of concern from staff that that practice probably shouldn't be followed in this year. About the next big question we ask is, are staff planning to return next year? 80% of our staff are planning to return to school in the fall if it's in person. This is around in-person instruction. 18% are uncertain, and 2% do not plan to return to in-person because of medical conditions. I will say that, again, this survey was conducted in late June, early July. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which is probably reflected at least a little bit in that number. We asked our staff the mask questions also. 88% of our staff planned to wear a mask, either sometimes or all the time. We did not ask staff to explain the sometimes, but in the future, when we do another survey, Dr. Jacobus talked about, we probably will delve a little deeper into that question. 2/3 of our staff reported requiring that they wanted us to require masks for both students and nearly 2/3 for, 2/3 for staff and nearly 2/3 for students. So the staff were much more supportive of the idea for requiring masks. And that's kind of all we're going to cover right now in the for the survey. Again, all the different questions in the surveys will be posted online, and that will be made available to you.
Hey, John.
If you have any questions.
John, this is Simi. I had just a couple questions. In the student survey, you said that there are 15% of families saying that they won't come back for distance learning. And I'm assuming in that question, are there comments or is there any sort of elaboration on why they are not taking that option or why families are not interested in that option?
Sure, there were not, that particular question did not have it, but we did read through the comment sections.
Okay.
And the comments around distance learning, there was a lot of concern around the social emotional aspect. Their child needed interaction.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't getting it. There was a lot of concern around sports and like would that be available, and if they just, I think there was an assumption that if we're in distance learning, there wouldn't be sports.
Okay. Okay.
So,
do we know for the, like, what I was curious about is the 12% that didn't like live video conferencing, are they the same people or is that just, we don't know?
actually, I did look at that, and they are largely the same people.
They are largely the same people? Okay.
Yeah.
You clearly know where I'm going.
Yeah.
The second question I had for you was when you said in the staff questionnaire about 80% plan to return if school is in person, and I'm presuming that's both, that includes both in person and some hybrid form, right? Or did staff break out very differently? Okay, no. Okay. Do you have that broken out by work group? So we know if it's like, 80%, is it really 80% of teachers, or is it really 87% of teachers, or 73% of teachers, or something like that? Do you have that information?
We do have that. It stayed pretty consistent across.
Okay. So no matter what work group they were in, they were about, okay, perfect. Yeah. That's all I had.
And I just will be, since the teachers are such a large portion of our workforce, it's just going to kind of be the nature that they make up a big piece of.
Okay.
Yeah. John, I have a question about that first part too, with the percentage of the parents that said they wouldn't be sending their children back. Just to clarify, because I took the survey myself as a parent, and I remember there being something regarding wouldn't send back to in person, but would send back if there's an online portion. Does that percentage include those parents that would just send back if there's an online portion?
Sure. So there was two different questions. The hybrid, that first question that I said there was 9%, that is just sending back to in person. So 9% of our family said we're not, if there is in-person instruction, we're not interested in sending our children back. And that last, or towards the end, the second question was, if there is distance learning only, will you send your child to us? And 15% said no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, John. I'd like to turn it over to Kwame Aim, our Director of Facilities, and he and his department have done some phenomenal work preparing for the start of school, depending on the scenario, and I thought it would be nice to have Kwame have a chance to talk about all the things that we will be looking at, which I think address some of the concerns that the parents and the staff had on the survey. So thank you, Kwame, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Jacobus. As our district spaces reopen amid COVID-19, we as a department must be prepared to make significant changes to create a safe environment for everyone. Every facility in the district has specialized requirements and operational needs. So it is important to adopt a flexible, strategic approach as we prepare for the arrival of students, staff, and visitors. Keeping a healthy and safe facility while educating students is crucial to preventing the spread of COVID-19. What we have developed is a collaborative effort with other departments such as transportation, special education, nutrition services, and community education, to mention a few. Our programs were developed with the mandated MDE scenarios and also within CDC and MDE guidelines and protocols. To achieve this, we looked at 4 main areas. 1, site analysis. We took a good look at our floor plans to better understand the physical size of each area, paying attention to spots or areas where there will be a lot of activity interaction. We then considered the appropriate health posters and social distancing signs to guide the foot traffic of students and staff. 2, assessed our needs. Adopt our protocols on how to handle day-to-day practices such as washroom guidelines, maximum number of students within a classroom and gathering areas, cafeteria and dining area safety practices. To this end, we developed a recurring sanitizing checklist for each area of our facilities before and after student and public use. 3, clean and disinfect. Each facility has different needs, so it is important to have a good supply line in place for sanitizers, cleaning supplies, and PPE such as face masks, shields, gloves, to mention a few. To underscore this point, we have spent a total of $265,000 to date for supplies for the district. We have also been able to acquire 62,000 washable face masks through a Department of Housing and Urban Development program free of charge. We are making sure that every school bus has a sanitizing bottle spray, cleaner, and wipes. The same goes for all classrooms in the district, with the exception of Kids Club and Special Education, where we have reserved sanitizing wipes for their usage. We have also acquired sanitizing foaming machines for all schools, which will cut down and optimize our ability to sanitize all areas quicker. All this is done within CDC and MDE guidelines. 4, stay connected. As we all know, information regarding the COVID-19 is fluid and constantly changing. As such, we remain flexible and assume frequent guideline adjustments as additional and new information becomes available. We also monitor local MD mandates to ensure we are conforming to the latest protocols. To aid our program, we have acquired the following items, just to mention a few. 250 sanitizing stations for our hallways, 1,700 sticker signs for use in our bathrooms, 5,000 cases of wipes, 100 plexiglass shields for our common areas and our entrances, 1,200 face shields, masks and designs of assorted variety, 22,000 disposable masks, 62,000 washable masks. The idea there is to distribute them to staff as needed and as required. 26 sanitizing foam sprayers, adding to what we already have in the district, brings us to about 38. 600 individual containers of Clorox wipes for use in special ed and Kids Club. 2,500 directional signs and 2,500 floor graphic signs, just to mention a few. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwame. I think as you listen, Kwame's also on our health and safety planning team, but we'll have, as was mentioned, we'll have guidance as if we're open with all kids in on how people navigate into the schools and out of the schools in our buildings with to keep people safe. The sanitation concerns that came up in the survey, I hope that some of our parents are able to listen, because I feel like Kwame and his team have addressed to completely look at sanitation on a nightly basis after we are in class, and then during class with the sanitation stations and all of the wipes and the PPE gear. They've really done a wonderful job of thinking through all of the contingencies that we have to look forward. And we are still watching, and Kwame will still be watching MDH and the recommendations, and make sure that as things progress over the next weeks before we start school, that we'll have everything in place beforehand. So thank you so much, and I'd give you a chance if you have any questions of Kwame or things you might have been thinking about.
I have a question for Kwame. You have all the supplies you need, but do you have the manpower to accomplish those tasks?
Yes, with what we have now, yes, we are. I'm confident we can do it. Yes.
Good, thank you.
Kwame, this is Simi. Are there any roadblocks or things that you wish or that you think we need that we've had trouble sourcing or that we just aren't able to get or aren't able to use for some reason or another? Or do you think what we have is pretty pretty appropriate for what we're trying to accomplish?
I think it is pretty appropriate. My fear is that probably we purchased a whole lot more than is needed, depending on what scenario we go under, and that is my biggest fear. Because with chemicals, you know, I don't know how the longevity of the chemicals. So if we keep it more than a year, there's a ton of money that we've wasted. That is my biggest fear. Apart from that, I think we are well stocked. We are in a good situation.
Great, thank you.
We also now can depend on Wesley. If we need anything, we'll be calling, as you said, Kwame.
Yeah, most definitely.
Maybe if we have too much, you can sell it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I think it's really important for our parents and our students and our staff to know how committed and how well thought through all of the safety procedures that they might be thinking of and showed up in our comments in the survey. And so we'll continue to keep you updated on those, how this progresses as we go through. So we wanted to do just a quick summary of, we have 5 planning teams. Then we have a strategy team that is overseeing the planning teams to make sure we're moving in the same direction and keeping people informed and communication. And we have 5 planning teams. We have a team for health and safety, which I mentioned Kwame's on, taking a look at all of the things we have to think about to ensure that our students and staff are safe, depending on the scenario that we're involved in. We have a planning team for mental and emotional health to address some of the issues and concerns that came forward since we've been closed in the spring and people have been at home. We know that we were working with students that were struggling with their emotional well-being before, when we were in a normal setting and we had the ability to work with them face-to-face. And we know in the spring there were many challenges. So that group is looking at how will we address, depending on the scenario, supporting our kids and our families as we go forward. We have a 3rd team that is looking at logistics, and that team really is intertwined with every team, because every team has logistics, but looking at an overall district view on what has to take place with schedules and transportation. And that's a really important team, a difficult team to be able to make decisions, because many are contingent, I should say, certainly on what the governor and the plan is, but also with what each one of the other teams are looking at. So there's and I'll explain in a second, there's a communication structure to make sure that everyone's working in the same, with the same thinking. We have a team for teaching and learning to talk about our instructional practices that we will look at in each scenario. And then we have a professional development and adult learning team that's looking at what type of training and resources do our staff in all walks of responsibility in our district, what will they need depending on the 3 scenarios, and also our parents. We know that our parents need support as they navigate each one of the plans. So we have, we're looking at how we provide training and support for our parents as well. So I thought we just talk really briefly about this, and if we just go through the list, I'm wondering if Dan, if you might just say a few things about health and safety. I mean, Kwame covered a lot of the things that you guys might be talking about, but is there any, just a summary of the work that you've been undertaking?
Sure. Well, mainly it's making sure that we're in compliance with any guidance or rules from the Minnesota Department of Health, and of course the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Education. So we have our security manager, Napoleon Generu, and one of our lead nurses, Tara Goebel, and they are keeping on top of everything that comes through that would change what we need to do. So our big focus is on making sure that everything we do is in compliance with any rules that are out.
Great. And I should say that Julie is facilitating the process and meets with the team leads on a weekly basis, along with facilitating the strategy team. So mental health, Julie, would you be able to just summarize where we are with mental health?
I actually think Christine is going to do the update on mental health.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I've been overseeing that committee. And so that is a committee that Joe Parks leads, one of our special ed supervisors, along with several of our mental health professionals within our district. So that's school counselors, school social workers, and other special education staff. And they're really making a plan for 4 different areas. First one is taking time to cultivate and deepen relationships and a plan for social emotional learning. They're designing opportunities where adults can connect, heal, and build their capacity to support our students. They're working on a plan to create safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments that promote students' social and emotional development. And they're going to use some data as an opportunity to share and deepen relationships and continually improve the support for students, staff, and families. So really, they're working on some PD for staff on how to work with students when they come back. They're putting together plans for guidance to staff, like on a first 20-day plan on what you could do to help students come back into the school safely, emotionally. They're going to have lots of resources for parents. They're going to work on some assessments and some screeners for students, such as depression screener and anxiety screener. So all kinds of things where we can use some data to figure out where kids are to meet their needs. And this committee has been amazing. They have pages and pages of resources that now they're going to whittle down to make it easy for staff and teachers to use in the schools when students come back. Because our goal is to make sure students feel okay emotionally coming back into school or continuing on distance learning, whichever the governor says we come back to.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Now, before I ask someone, Julie, logistics?
I believe Bob Lawrence is going to give the update on logistics.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Unless Christine wants to.
Bob.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
So for logistics, we are about a half a step behind the rest of the teams, and it's not because of lack of effort, but because, as Dr. Jacobus said, we're waiting to hear and see where the other teams land as far as the planning, and also hearing from the governor. But our task is really to pull together all of the thinking that's happening and ensure that from a logistics standpoint, so thinking about staffing, transportation, space needs, and so forth, that everything can fit together. So right now we're working on a lot of lists, to-do lists. We are looking at each of the departments and each of the different planning teams and asking the questions of what are your staffing needs in each of the scenarios and other logistical needs, transportation, like I said. And so we're ready to go, that as things start to kind of solidify, we will be looking at what all of those logistical components are and putting together plans related to that. Ashley Ruka, who is assistant principal at Eastridge High School, leads our team, and she says we're sort of hunters and gatherers right now. So we're going out and listening in on other conversations and reading through some of the materials that have been gathered by other teams to put together some plans. So that's where we're at right now.
Great. Thank you. Pretty sure it's going to be Kelly talking about teaching and learning, correct?
Good guess. Thanks, Dr. Jacobus. I am working with the teaching and learning practices team that is being led by Chuck Paulson, the assistant director for teaching and learning, but also then they are splitting into 2 groups, elementary and early learning and secondary. And Stacy Benz is leading the elementary early learning group, and Angie Lawrence is leading the secondary group. And we're in a little bit of a different place than some of the other teams. And what we were hoping to do is take a look at what happened during distance learning and really focus on what went well. What are some things that we learned that we can continue to evolve throughout our system? And then where are some opportunities for improvement, knowing that there's potential that we're going to need to be fluid between the 3 scenarios, face-to-face, hybrid, or distance learning. So at the beginning of the summer, actually, we provided an opportunity for all staff to have some time this summer to work with the pillars of teaching and learning. So the learning management systems, Schoology or Seesaw, curriculum and pedagogy, the standards, learning targets, lesson designing, student engagement and cultural, making sure we have culturally responsive engagement strategies happening, whether we're virtual or face-to-face, assessment, making sure we have formative assessments in place, and then what are our summative assessments going to look like, especially to ensure fidelity for students, especially in the online environment. What does that look like? And then, of course, environment and culture, and just routines and rituals, and very much a lot of that work is aligned with the work of the SEL and mental health group. So at the beginning of the summer, we laid out a framework for all staff to apply for 10 hours of curriculum writing time to kind of begin their own exploration and their own work and evolve their practices, knowing that we, again, had to be prepared for anything. So we had about 730 staff that took advantage of that 10 hours and submitted that they were interested in doing that. And so I look forward to see the work that they're doing, and they're just kind of waiting now to hear from the teaching and learning practices group. And our biggest kind of thing out there right now is the logistic piece of the hybrid. And what does hybrid mean and look like, and what does streaming your class look like? What is synchronous learning versus asynchronous? And I know those are all kind of terms that are big and out there, and we'll definitely explain what those are as we get deeper into the process. But teaching and learning has done a lot of work around lots of different pillars related to making sure our kids are progressing and growing.
And I think it's important too for our community to know if we are in, and we would have called it something different than distance learning to separate what we did with emergency distance learning in the spring. There's a lot of work to be that is in place to enhance what we do. So some of the folks that struggled during the spring and had said in the survey that they don't feel comfortable coming back if we're in that system, I hope they take a look at what will be in place, because it will look different than it was in the spring. So thanks, Kelly. The last committee, professional development and adult learning, James McGee, our professional development coordinator, is overseeing that committee. And just like every committee, it's an amazing group of people. They've been using design thinking to take a look at what would be the best approach to help all employee groups. And again, it's not just focused on teachers, all of employee groups, to give them the support they need in any one of the three scenarios. So they've done a lot of prototyping and getting out there and talking with people, and then doing the same thing with parents to identify in the three scenarios, what type of support can we give them? We know that particularly I should say, working parents, and it was a struggle if we're in a distance learning situation. We want to provide them support, give them guidance on what they should be thinking about. And I'm so impressed with the work this group has been doing, and they're really excited, and rightfully so, about what they'll be able to roll out. All of these groups, and I'd let Julie give you a chance to summarize at the end here, but all of the groups, there's a component to make sure that we have included student voice. So each planning team is looking at ways that they are contacting students and making sure they're involved with giving us their ideas and their opinions to help refine the work that all 5 teams are doing. And then again, pulling them, all teams together to coordinate the activities. So for each one of the 3 scenarios, that we're on the same page. And as was mentioned, the hybrid is the most difficult, but I'm very pleased, and Julie may say a little bit about this too, that as we've talked to other districts, they're all struggling with the same thing, and we're all thinking in somewhat of a common way about how we would address the hybrid. So I'll give you a chance, Julie, just to summarize anything that you want to add and talk about the teams and the process.
Well, I think you have pretty much covered everything from the entire state of Minnesota. We're all in conversation. It might be the first time that I see leaders getting together on a weekly basis talking about instruction and kids, which is really something positive. I know Kelly has been on phone calls. Many of us have been on phone calls with other leaders throughout the entire state. We want to do our best to get it right. I will just say that I start my Tuesday mornings with our team planning leads, who are some of our exceptional, detailed, organized people out in our organization. And they get me so excited and so pumped up because they are just doing incredible work. The efforts behind what everyone is doing has just been incredible and approached with a positive attitude. And I think one thing that we're all going to need to learn as we go in through the next months is we're going to have to exude patience, and we're going to have to model leadership and know that we are models for our kids and for our families. And so, yes, as Keith said, we are all very connected. I think Kwame made that note too. Just to update the board on where we're at with the hybrid. We are refining right now what we're calling the elementary, the middle level, and the high school level hybrid option. We then, not next week, but the following week, will go out and test that hybrid option with our staff members. So we want to get feedback from staff members at the elementary level, middle level, and high school. We want them to give us feedback to see what things might we have missed. And right now, what we know is in conversations with other Minnesota school districts, every district has a similar twist to what they're doing based on their district, the size, etc. So we will get feedback from our own stakeholders before we then take that hybrid option out to our parents and community to ask for that feedback. So that's how we will close the loop with making sure that we have gotten the feedback from people within the community and our own staff members. And our planning teams, they are being asked as they work to also include that student voice. I think we really believe that our students have the answers, and we just need to tap into them so they can hopefully give us the best answers for their learning.
Thanks. So we'd open up to any questions you might have.
I know I had one question. I don't know if you can actually maybe answer yet, but it seems to me, having worked in transportation, that piece of the fall is a really big piece because of how many kids we transport. And depending on what's happening with a hybrid or back to school, it seems like, do we have enough time when they announce July 22nd? Because I know normally they're working on fall routes over the summer.
And I'm not sure, Bob or Dan, if you've talked transportation. In talking with Carrie, one of the things we've thought about is that it's with as difficult it is to put routes together, that we may need to look at some general routes that run more like city buses, where we're not going as deeply into neighborhoods and things like that to make that workable. I don't want to scare people about that yet, but there has been discussions, and I'm not sure if we've been able to go much further. And Julie, I don't know if you have information, but that is a problem because we need to know what's happening.
From our survey too, we also asked the question about transportation. And so we may need to dig into that a little bit deeper when it comes to, what option is selected from the governor, if parents would be willing to transport their own children in light of the way we're starting the school year. And so that certainly is a consideration, Tracy, but you are right. To turn that around in terms of our regular bus routes will be difficult. Other school districts are talking about other options with parents like the city bus route. And so we know that we're in conversations with other districts as far as what they're going to do with transportation too.
Yeah, the only other piece was if we can't have full buses, I know we have issues finding drivers for normal routes with full buses. So, it seems like a real concern trying to get the kids to school on time. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the logistics piece of this.
Yeah.
Taking a look at, we're trying to build in flexibility for kids and staff and in the different scenarios, but you end up bound by restrictions, and transportation is definitely one of those areas. What's great is Julie said, with the positive approach that everyone's looking at it, and Carrie Olson, our director, is really looking at all different avenues, and they're a creative team too. And we're hoping that as we planned potential ways to address each one of the scenarios, once the final decision is made, then we can finalize those logistics and move forward. I was pleased by the number of parents who said they have the ability to transport and would be willing, but we're not sure if that really is placed on their shoulders, if that is going to be workable throughout the year. So. Yeah, it's a big issue that we have to finalize soon. So,
Hey, Julie.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Simi. I had a question. You were talking about incorporating student voice in all of the teams. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been approaching that?
And so, Simi, with the planning teams have their own process within, but they are going out and testing and asking students, and they each have applied a little bit different process. James has definitely gone out and tested more with students with professional development and learning around what parents need. And so I think it would really depend on which planning team, how we've incorporated student voice. One last thing for the board that we have gotten some emails on, and that is the option of distance learning. And so a reminder that MDE is requiring all school districts to provide distance learning. And so we've had some families reach out to us saying that they know now that their children will not be returning, and will we be able to meet their needs? And the answer is yes, because as a district, a Minnesota school district, we are required to provide distance learning for any students that are not able to come back in a hybrid or in-person fashion.
All right, well, thank you. I presume we'll have other updates.
We'll be updating, and like I said, we'll be surveying our parents and community members again. We'll keep you up. It may be a standing agenda item until we get moving into the fall.
All right, well, thank you all for your hard work. I know it's going to be an awesome fall. All right, 9.0 discussion items. We don't have any this evening. 10.0 are action items. 10.1 is the approval of our 21-22 long-term facility maintenance plan. And our Director of Finance and Operations, Dan Pine, will join us for this.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Chair Burnett, members of the school board, members of the cabinet, Superintendent Jacobus. You probably think we bring you an LTFM item every week or at least once a month. Hopefully it will stop for a while. LTFM is long-term facility maintenance. It's a program in which we were able to repair and replace building equipment and large-scale building items. As a requirement to participate in the LTFM program, the school board must approve an annual 10-year plan. So we bring a 10-year plan to you every year. It's a rolling plan. LTFM projects are financed as a combination of aid, what we call pay-as-you-go levy, and bonded levy. Pay-as-you-go levy is the amount that we're approved for to directly levy to pay for your LTFM projects. Aid is determined by equalization factors based on property values. And then the bonded levy, those are projects that are approved to be bonded, and we pass bonds every 2 years to pay for these projects. We've attached the plan. There's a revenue portion and an expenditure portion at the end of the attachment. That's the actual plan that you will be approving. The actual 10-year plan obviously may change in the future. It's the plan we know right now. The plan for this coming school year, the 2021 school year, that will not change because the projects are all set in place. There's no reason to. We did come to you last month and ask you to change the 1920 plan. That was mainly because we were able to move projects from the 2021 plan into 1920, getting them done sooner. And as we changed the plan, we simply just took the dollars off of the current plan. So we're not spending more dollars. And finally, I think, if you look, we've attached all the projects for the next 10 years that we're planning. It's a undertaking of the Building and Grounds Department to put that together. And obviously we may change a few of those. Sometimes buildings may change, things like that, but we're required to put that out there. I do, however, like to have that out there so that people can actually, the public, the principals, the school board members, people can see what is planned to happen. Mainly, it's not real glamorous stuff. It's like parking lots. It's like boilers and chillers and things like that. But if they do drive by and see a parking lot all ripped up, you know, they'll kind of know, oh yeah, they're going to do Pine Hill this year or something like that. So other than that, if, I just ask you to approve the plan and we can send it off to MDE, and I won't bring anything back to you again for at least 8 months now, long-term facility maintenance.
All right, so I will first entertain a motion to approve.
Driscoll, I so move.
Karen, second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, we will take a roll call vote, please.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petniak,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Motion passes. 10.2 is the approval of our Minnesota State High School League membership, and Dr. Jacobus will take this one tonight.
Thank you. For those of you that have been on the board, you know that each summer we bring forward an approval for next year's membership with the Minnesota High School League. And for our new board members, the first time we'll see this each summer. So I'm bringing forward the resolution or the proposal to again be part of the Minnesota State High School League as a requirement. Then we'll follow the league's constitutions and their guidance and the rules. And as you know, that one of the things that the league has put in place over the last few years is the Why We Play approach, which is a positive approach. I know all of you have watched the video Why We Play, trying to make sure that we keep in the forefront of all the adults' minds that are involved in athletics and the students' minds, that the goal is to enjoy and create a positive environment as we learn about athletics. And it's not it's a very positive approach it's not just about winning. So I really love that our state has embraced this approach to athletics. So I would ask you to approve our membership this year, as we do each summer.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
Karen, so moved.
Louise second.
All right. So moved by Sharon, second by Louise. Roll call vote, please.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petniak,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. 10.3 is the acceptance of finding and conclusion submitted on June 16, 2020 in the matter of termination of the coaching contracts. And I see Kevin Witherspoon will be joining us for this, our Director of Human Resources.
Hi, good evening. So as you know, we had a special school board meeting was held on June 16th, 2020 regarding the termination of spring coaching contracts. At that time, there was a lot of discussion, I think about 3 hours of discussion. The board was asking for some more information. So the board agreed to table the discussion for a future meeting. There was some, the board members wanted some information about financial impacts of the different scenarios, and that was provided to the board. Today I provided another copy of, I know there was one on the June 16th special board meeting, but in the board packets today, there was another copy just for you tonight if you wanted to peruse that of the findings. So tonight I'm here to ask for the board to accept the findings and conclusions from the June 16th meeting. The administration recommends the school board accept the findings and conclusions.
All right. So we will first accept a motion to approve.
So moved, Sharon.
Katie second.
All right, so moved by Sharon, second by Katie. Any comments, questions on this item? All right, we will have a roll call vote as well, please.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
No.
Simi Petniak,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
So 10, oh yeah, thank you. 10.4 is we're going to be accepting the retirement notice for Dr. Jacobus this evening, and I will turn it over to you first.
Thanks. Just have a short statement. Last spring, as the pandemic took hold of our lives and forced us to confront our vulnerabilities, I began to reflect on my career and the time I have spent with the people I love. I am proud of the work that we have done in our district, but I long to spend more time with my family. I have decided to retire a year earlier than planned. We have put in a great strategic plan in place. We have fostered a focus and foundation on equity for all that will lead us forward in eliminating the opportunity gaps for our kids. And more importantly, we have a great leadership team in place who is ready to carry on our mission. With the changes taking place in education and the creativity being championed through our fall planning, it's the right time to step away and watch our district continue to grow and improve. I am grateful I had the opportunity to work with such a wonderful school board, leadership team, teaching and support staff, and most importantly, such a talented and committed student population as we met one student today, Wesley. So thank you very much.
All right. With gratitude for Keith's years of service, dedication, professionalism, and accomplishments, I move to accept the retirement of Dr. Keith Jacobus effective September 2nd, 2020. I get a second.
Second. Sharon, second.
All right, second by Sharon. So I don't know if you have any comments or questions, but if not, we will have a roll call. I'm sorry, Louise, did you want to say anything?
No, I do think one of Dr. Jacobus' legacy in the district will be the focus on equity and how much professional development has been provided to our staff.
And as a new board member, I'd just like to thank Dr. Jacobus for helping get me oriented to the world of school boards and school district management and answering every question I have under the sun. And I have a lot of questions. And so I just really appreciate the time and the talent, the integrity, the commitment, all of that you've shared with our district. And I really appreciate how much you've put your heart into helping me personally, helping students, helping staff, and I wish you well.
I just want to thank you for putting together such a strong leadership team, and you're leaving us in good hands. We'll need to replace you, but we have good people. So thank you for all your hard work.
I second what Louise said just about your legacy and what remarkable work you've been doing with the equity in our district. And I wish you well. And sorry that our time working together was so short. So.
Yeah, so I guess as the only board member left who hired Keith, it's definitely with a heavy heart. I know there's a saying that one of our executives at my company said is, they don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And I just think that that definitely sums up Dr. Jacobus and his work. We haven't made as many positive steps forward as we have since he took over as our superintendent in District 833, and it's only been positive, and I know we have much better education for all of our students because of his leadership, and just very much appreciate all your work, and we'll miss having you around. So.
Thank you for your leadership and your patience with us. I know it called for patience and for diversifying this district. I think the diversity has come a long way than years past, and I am grateful for the opportunity to share in that legacy. And definitely, you will be missed. And I thank you for your support and your faithfulness to this district.
All right. So if everyone has said what they would like, we will have a roll call vote, please.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petniak,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. All right, thank you. Motion passed. So 10.5 now is a request for a proposed succession plan for filling our superintendent vacancy. The board is familiar with Assistant Superintendent Julie Nielsen and has had an opportunity to observe her work firsthand for a number of years. I believe she is prepared, extremely well qualified, and a logical choice to lead the district as its next superintendent. Because we have such a strong internal candidate who we know well, it does not make sense for the board to use limited district resources to conduct an external search. Accordingly, I am making a motion to hire Julie Nielsen as the district's next superintendent and to authorize the board chair to work with the board's legal counsel to negotiate a 3-year contract with Ms. Nielsen that does not exceed the salary and benefits provided in Superintendent Jacobus's current contract for the first year of Ms. Nielsen's contract. So with that, I will entertain a second.
Katie, second.
Second.
I think I heard Melinda first.
Yes.
So, okay. All right. And clearly we'll have additional conversation once we have a little bit more information talking with Nick. And so we will have a roll call vote at this time.
Melinda Doles,
Yes.
Louise Hines,
Yes.
Simi Petniak,
Yes.
Pat Driscoll,
Yes.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz,
Yes.
Tracy Burnett.
Yes. So just curious if Julie wants to say a word or two. I know it's early, but.
For those people that don't know, I am kind of the dinosaur in the district. At least that's what I call myself. I was lucky enough 26 years ago, actually 29 years ago, or 30 years ago, to be a student teacher in South Washington County Schools. And this school district gave me my first chance as a beginning teacher. And so I have spent 26 years in the district. And first off, thank you to the school board. Thank you to Dr. Jacobus and our entire leadership team. I am excited. I'd like to jump up, but we're also at a time when there's a lot of serious work that needs to be done. And I think stepping into this wonderful district with such incredible people, we will continue, Dr. Jacobus, your legacy and moving us forward. I would just say to Chair Burnett, I am excited to be considered and would welcome a conversation about a contract.
Thank you. All right, 11.0 are reports and comments, and we will end this evening with Dr. Jacobus's report.
Great. Well, what I'd like to use my time is to introduce our new assistant superintendent that I'm so excited to introduce to you tonight and give him a chance to say a few words. So Dr. Tyrone Brookings is coming to us from Roseville Area School District, and we were so excited when we started the process, and as we started reading his paperwork and finding out more about him and through the interview process. And interestingly, many of our people know Dr. Brookins because he has been working with Courageous Leadership and the Principals Institute that many of our leaders have gone through. So I'm really pleased to introduce him this evening and give him a chance to just say a few words to you. And Dr. Brookins, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, school board members, and colleagues. It is definitely a pleasure and an honor to step into the role of Assistant Superintendent. When I think about the overarching mission for District 833, igniting a passion for lifelong learning, that sums up who I am as an educator. I'm looking forward to working with principals, working with community members, working with staff to make sure that not only the legacy of Dr. Jacobus continues, but that mission is made manifest in every student that comes through this district. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm ready to hit the ground. And it is a bittersweet moment because, you know, I was looking forward to working with Dr. Jacobus, and to find out that he's leaving, you know, it's interesting. But the work has to continue, and I believe that's the best way to honor him is to make sure that that legacy continues. I'm also excited about the onboarding that soon-to-be Superintendent Nielsen has provided me with. She has been a true colleague and companion in this week that I have been part of the district. So I'm looking forward to working with her under her leadership as well.
Thank you very much and welcome. Happy to have you join our awesome team.
That's so we'll do next time.
All right, 12.0 future meeting dates. We have August 13 and August 27 as regular board meetings. And with that, we are adjourned. Y'all have a wonderful weekend.